Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith here to break down your MMA news for Jellysmack. At the top of the list, as always, Conor McGregor. His will he, won't he come back to the Octagon? It's been a huge topic his entire career since he's gotten big, where, he's fought for a title, won 2 of them, but has been comparatively inactive. Now, coming off 2 straight losses, the last one a shattered shin at the hands of Dustin Poirier, make a lot of people, myself included, think he's never going to come back to the Octagon. Well, a random fan tweeted at him asking why he would fight, considering all the money he has made, everything he has outside of the Octagon, and he replied with, "You know what? You're right. Goodbye." Had a lot of MMA fans freaking out. Is this his official retirement? Well, hate to break it to you, but nothing Conor McGregor says on Twitter should be taken literally, let's say it. Now, I don't think he announced his retirement, but I think the writing is on the wall that the man is not coming back. When it came to fighting Michael Chandler, he famously said, "It's done, I'll be back, it'll be announced on ESPN." That never happened. His comebacks just cannot be taken seriously at this point. And the injury that took him out, which an injury to his pinky toe, and I'm not exaggerating, should be an indication that that's healed by now. He could come back. Negotiations would already be starting, but that isn't the case. This is a man who has been inconsistent over the last few years, and getting back into fighting isn't a decision, it's a commitment to a multi-month camp where you have to stay clean, you have to stay busy, and you gotta be in the gym. There is nothing about the Conor McGregor we have seen on social media that gives anyone the indication that he is going to be the guy to get clean, get in shape, and get back in the octagon. I think UFC fans in many ways have moved past Conor McGregor, not just Conor McGregor himself, but the idea of him as a great force in MMA. There was a time when he wasn't just a great show, he was a great fighter, a simultaneous champion at 145 and 155. The idea that he ever gets back to those heights again, and if he comes back, he'll look like a shadow of his former self, I think that's the issue that is keeping a lot of MMA fans away from getting excited about his return. Did he announce his retirement with that tweet? I don't think so. What I think he's going to do is tweet again about coming back because he likes the attention of being in the fight world, but he doesn't like the commitment of actually getting ready for a fight. So was that his official retirement? No. But I stick by the fact that I don't believe he ever gets back into the Octagon. If he does, I'll be extremely surprised. And in the middleweight division, Armen Petrosyan knocked out by Sherdog with a beautiful double spinning back fist that has to be seen to believed. In the post-fight press conference, Sherdog calling out former champion Israel Adesanya.
Listen to me, guys. I'm the best striker in this division. I'm smash Israel Adesanya.
Israel Adesanya replying with a very succinct, "Keep my name out of your effing mouth." Great. Now, what fighters have to realize is that the more you tell somebody to leave their name out of your mouth, the more they're going to talk about you. And fans are a bit responsible for this kind of talk because the more fighters go back and forth, the more energy there is on social media, the more excited people get about the showdown itself. And in this case, Israel Adesanya can tell Sherdog to shut up, but this is a great fight between excellent strikers. Now, I have my problems with Sherdog as a real contender at 185 pounds. Number one is he's very, very hittable. Even the guys he has beaten, Armen Petrosyan, for example, his last time out, walked forward and hit him with clean punches right in the beginning. He's going to have difficulty with the great kickboxers and the heavy hitters at 185 pounds. The big question is Israel Adesanya one of those guys? The problem with Sherdog is he's beaten a bunch of guys who were mid-level, and he's gotten hit a lot doing it. Can he take on Israel Adesanya, who is still a devastating striker at 185 pounds? The results of the fight, we won't know until the fight is booked, but the idea that Sherdog has no problem calling out Israel Adesanya shows that he is full of confidence right now, and the more Israel Adesanya gets upset about it, the more the fans will want to see it. It's a compelling matchup at 185, regardless of what you think about the future of Sherdog or the future of Israel Adesanya. But if Israel Adesanya is anywhere near where he was when he won the title and successfully defended it multiple times, I think he can beat Sherdog and get back on track. But if Sherdog can beat the former champion, boom, he jumps into contender status and definitely jumps to the front of the list of compelling 185 pounders in the UFC right now. And what a time to be Khamzat Chimaev. The 185-pound contender jumps 10 spots to number 3 in the division after his first-round destruction of Robert Whittaker, who falls to number 4. This is incredible. We've seen fighters go from unranked to near the top, but a 10-spot jump is absolutely incredible. But it's hard to say he doesn't deserve it. He did take on the guy who was number 3 and destroyed him in round number 1. If you didn't see it, it was an early takedown. Rear naked becomes a clamp on the jaw that literally caused Robert Whittaker's teeth to cave in. Therefore led to an early tap. Khamzat Chimaev gets another first round finish. But the jury is still a bit out on how well he can do in a long, difficult, grueling fight. I've talked about this quite a bit. First round knockout is great, but we're used to first round finishes from this guy. That's what he does, but he tends to fade after the second round. Even in 3-round fights, a lot of people, myself included, thought Kamaru Usman could have won that fight if it had been a 5-rounder. Started coming back in round number 3. Khamzat Chimaev is very, very explosive and dominant early. He hasn't shown he can hang tough for 5 rounds. Or to be a champion or a legitimate contender, you have to show that, and he hasn't yet. The thing is, he might get a title shot very, very soon. Why? He's dynamic, fans seem to like him, he gets early finishes, so it's one of those things where he could get a title shot having never shown us that he can go a tough 25 minutes. It's the way of the world. If you get fans interested, you're going to be next, and we'll have more about the 185-pound title in a minute. But Khamzat Chimaev, a huge leap from 13 to 3. After his destruction of Robert Whittaker, can't say he doesn't deserve it. Another great guy to be, Alex Pereira, who, according to the Hollywood Reporter, could be playing a bad guy in a movie soon. Doesn't surprise me at all. Why? Having called the WWE, I know what it's like. You can fight and be good and not look like a fighter, or look mean and not get over, right? Alex Pereira seems to check off all the boxes. He's big, scary looking, and can actually fight. Now, the question is, how much of a bad guy role will they give him? If he's standing there throwing punches, a lot of physical action, I'm sure he can handle. How well he acts and can actually carry a character, we'll have to see. But one thing as an MMA fan that is great, this sport tends to reward the talkers more than the doers. The ones who can grab a microphone and lay down a good promo, as they say in the wrestling business, go further than someone who just does their talking in the octagon. Alex Pereira may be a rarity, the one crossover star who is knocking people out in the octagon, not a great talker, but has really captured the hearts of the fans. If he were to cross over, do movies, do TV, and be one of those stars that is a household name, he would be an exception to a very important rule. It's usually how you talk and how you look more than how you fight. But a great fighter who has the bad guy look, it'd be great to see Alex Pereira, who is a nice guy that fans really like, do something great in Hollywood. We'll see if it's just a one-off. There's a career for this guy. I remember Roddy Piper and They Live, so I think it's possible. And what is going on in the middleweight division? It is exciting right now, and Dricus du Plessis knows it. After Khamzat Chimaev's brutal victory over Robert Whittaker by, I want to say rear naked choke, but more rear naked tooth crush in the first round, he gave his congratulations to Khamzat Chimaev, felt bad for Robert Whittaker, and said, I cannot wait to take this guy's O. Now, let's look a little bit past that. I think he also sees the vulnerabilities in Khamzat Chimaev. Sean Strickland has said that the UFC has said that he is next. The problem with that matchup is we've already seen it. There isn't a ton of fan excitement. It's two guys that will give us an excellent fight, but there isn't a lot of momentum behind it necessarily. Khamzat Chimaev, who went up 10 spots from number 13 to number 3, has a ton of momentum behind him. He has the look, he has the finishing ability to make fans wonder if he could be the real deal. But if you're Dricus du Plessis, you know something that other fans don't, which is, I can go 25 minutes. No one knows if Khamzat Chimaev can, because he's never had to. As I've pointed out plenty of times, the guy tends to tire after round 2. So Dricus du Plessis may be making the smart play here. Fight Khamzat Chimaev, make more in the pay-per-view, get fans excited about it, but take on a guy who, when it's all said and done, might be an easier fight than Sean Strickland, who we know can put in a hard 25 minutes, is a tricky striker with his boxing style, and it's someone he's fought before. This guy understands Dricus du Plessis and may have tweaked his game plan under Eric Nixick in the right way to beat him. Khamzat Chimaev, if I'm DDP, makes a lot more sense. Take this guy out by dragging him into deep water in a way that he can't do with Sean Strickland. Now, will the UFC agree with it? That is 100% the question, because they've already promised Sean Strickland, but promises don't mean a lot when it comes to the almighty dollar. We'll see if this fight happens. And it's a case of good news, bad news when it comes to Francis Ngannou, especially for the PFL. Good news is he was dominant against Renan Fajeda, which justifies some of the gigantic purse that was paid to both fighters. A lot of press around it, more eyeballs on PFL and their pay-per-view than they've ever had before. Bad news is that post-fight, he mentioned 2 fighters he wants to fight, and neither one is under the PFL roster. In fact, neither one even fights in MMA, Deontay Wilder or a rematch with Tyson Fury. That's what he talked about. Now, this is the entire problem with having a fighter bounce around from boxing to MMA. Let's face it, I call both sports, and fighters at the top of boxing make way more than the fighters at the top of MMA. Francis Ngannou knows he can make a lot more money rematching Tyson Fury or taking on Deontay Wilder, who is very, very faded, but a former champion, than he can fighting for PFL. So can PFL keep him in-house fighting mixed martial artists? That's going to be extremely difficult. Not only can he fight these top names and make top dollar, Fighter, he has to fight heavyweights in PFL, and right now, there aren't a lot of contenders. It was a weak division in Bellator, so the acquisition of that promotion doesn't give them any great names outside of Ryan Bader, who is a bit over the hill. So he doesn't have a lot of potential fights in the PFL, and he can make huge money fighting former champions in boxing. So the problem is Francis Ngannou is big, and he made his profile bigger in PFL, but that also opens up boxing fights that don't do anything for PFL, and they gotta wait for him to come back. So that's what you get, signing Francis Ngannou. Hopefully he's back in the cage fighting MMA soon. Is there trouble in the relationship between Joe Rogan and Dana White? Joe Rogan recently criticized Dana White for not being a, quote, purist when talking about Magomed Ankalaev. Of course, winning over Alexander Rakic probably puts him next in line for Alex Pereira, but the UFC boss Dana White called the fighter, quote, boring, which is usually the kiss of death when it comes to MMA promotion. My question about this is why now? Dana White is a promoter. Promoters aren't supposed to be purists. They're supposed to be about making money. Better fighter gets in, great. Most valuable fighter gets in, everybody makes more money. That's what Dana White is always about. So it's interesting to me that Joe Rogan would decry the lack of purity in Dana White when that's been Dana White's MO his entire career. He's a promoter, that's what he's supposed to do. Sat next to Joe Rogan, by the way, when CM Punk made his second UFC fight and got handled by Mike Jackson, B-level fighter. Let's face it, CM Punk had no business being in the Octagon. But it made money, the crowd went crazy, so Dana White's gonna make it happen. What a lot of people don't understand is promoters are about money. That's what they do. And the idea that they're going to put the fighter in there that's going to give them the most eyeballs, the most pay-per-views, and make the most dollars, that's what they're going to do. Now, the other side of this is that Magomed Ankalaev is now the #1 contender for Alex Pereira, and it's not a deep division. There are a lot of names at 205, but he's gone through a lot of them, and he hasn't just gone through them, he's gone through them by knockout. So it could be the fact that Magomed Ankalaev, much like, let's say, John Fitch at 170 pounds, is just going to be the very tough fighter who stays in there long enough to get the opportunity. Now, I've said for a long time that Magomed Ankalaev is probably the biggest threat to Alex Pereira. Why? He's got a Sambo background, has done some Greco-Roman wrestling. He kickboxes a lot, but he does have a takedown. He's also a very big 205er. He might have the style to get in, take Pereira down, and test his ground game for 25 minutes, something no one else has really been able to do. Jan Blachowicz was able to get him down, but not keep him down enough to win rounds to win the fight. So Ankalaev may be the kryptonite for Alex Pereira, which may be why Dana White wants to keep him away from him. Will he go up to heavyweight? Maybe take on the winner of John Jones, Stipe Miocic, Aspinall versus the winner, whatever it is, the winner of that might get Alex Pereira. He does have heavyweight power, very, very strong. Would that be a better use of his stardom than taking on a very dangerous Russian that the fans aren't really behind? There are a lot of things in promotion. Gotta have the right passport, gotta have fan support, and have to have a style that is scintillating. Unfortunately, Magomed Ankalaev has neither one of those, and the fact that Dana White isn't a purist means that him getting a title shot will probably be a last resort for Dana White and the UFC. Joe Rogan, deep in his heart, knows that. Dana White didn't get where he is by being a purist.